Laramie County School District number 2 to order. We have an agenda before us, and since we're kind of informal at the cow, is there any recommended changes, or should we just go ahead and roll with it? We've got any changes? I just have a few things that I want to recognize or acknowledge as we start off, but probably we're all getting some thank yous in the mail from some students. You guys got some in your private mail? You know, Rand Kenner has, maybe they're just being sent to us, but I just want to recognize that this boomer really appreciates handwritten or stuff in the mail, so that really did good for my boomer soul. So I appreciate that. I wanted to recognize that. And then I'd like to recognize Justin and the admin for hosting our town halls. Really appreciate that. And also teammates, those that could make it, I really appreciate your participation as well. I think we did due diligence to put stuff out to our stakeholders. I think it was advertised. The information was there at back to school fairs. So I think there was ample opportunity for people to be informed. So I want to thank you all. And thank you, Justin, and our the law enforcement too. So very good deal. So that's all I've got for my. Oh, I got one more. That Taft Love, who was a board member, he has been appointed to Darren Smith's vacated position. So Taft served on our board for 10 years. So it's kind of nice to have a relationship with him. So he also understands school finance and what we go through as a small school district. So it'll be nice to have a familiar face there. So with that, let us go into a review of our proposed board meeting for Monday night. And that will be 7 p.m. at Carpenter. And as it comes up, we will do our general business, which will start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. And then we'll look at any recommended changes to the agenda, and approval of the agenda. I'm not sure if we have any recognitions yet this early in the school year.
A little early.
A little early, but they're coming. We know they're coming. And then we'll have visitor and patron comments. And then we'll look at our consent agenda. There'll be approval of the minutes from August 12th from the regular board meeting. And then there'll be August 12th executive session board meeting minutes. And I imagine we'll probably add tonight's executive session minutes to that as well. And when the warrants are available, please look at those because we'll have that all part of the consent agenda. And then Thomas will get to give us our financial report. It's great to have you do that for us. And so far, no new business. There's no old business, but we have a policy which is the administering medicine to students. It's JLCD. We'll have action and discussion on that. And then our policy CKA, the concealed firearms, which we had our town halls associated around. So I guess it'll be interesting to see if Justin has any more feedback by that time on Monday. But to review those attachments and documents. And then we have a purchasing procedure manual update. And Justin will fill us in on that. I think it's just it's a procedure, so we don't really have to have a public input on that since it's a procedure. But the policies we will have open for public comment. Then we have an executive session for personnel and legal.
Madam Chair.
Sir.
Will we be voting on purchasing procedure or not? Or is that just for our information?
I believe since it's a procedure, it's for our information.
But yeah, Madam Chair, I don't believe you voted on changes to that manual in the past. It's one page. I think it's like 10 words we've changed.
I've seen that.
So, but we wanted you to know that we made those changes.
Okay. Yeah.
If you would rather as a board vote on it, you're welcome to.
I was just wondering,
not a practice.
because some of the changes were pretty minimal. A word change.
Yeah. We had don't want to ruin the surprise, but we had a couple of references to the wrong federal regulation, and then we decided to tweak some of that language to address all federal programs and not just the school lunch program. So
Sure.
So that we don't have to keep addressing it. Things change, okay. All right, any other questions, Mike? Okay, anybody else? Then we have an executive session for personnel, legal, and perhaps safety. We'll have the hires, transfers, and resignations. And then we go for information and discussion. Looks like we have a facilities update, tech update, woo-hoo. And then we have our board Cal meeting dates for our next following minutes, and then adjournment. So it looks like, so far, just pretty straightforward meeting. Any questions about our proposed agenda? Or anything anybody wants to add? Okay, then let's move to our work session item, which is our board retreat. Which, we've already got some agenda items, which would be our data review, because the YTAP testing came back. And our strategic plan, which we also put out there at the town hall meetings for people to weigh in on. So we'll have that discussion. One thing Justin had mentioned was that perhaps we would even take a tour of the UW campus.
I do have that lined up.
Okay, sounds great. I'm kind of excited about that. I think that's kind of a neat opportunity for us while we're over there. The strategic plan, the data review, and then we will have a discussion about our evaluation tool for our superintendent. So we'll have that discussion there. Talk. Is there any other suggested topics that you guys would like addressed? We'll be meeting with the admin on Friday, and so that's always a good powwow, I guess I'd put it that way, with them. So is there any other topics you guys want to discuss there? We'll meet Thursday, probably late afternoon Thursday, with just us as the board. The admin will join us on Friday. So, any other things you want to add, Justin?
We're going to make sure that we can honor what's happening for homecoming on Friday, as well as the parades on Thursday. So both parades are on Thursday. I think Burns is at 10, Pines at 1.
Okay.
And then we know we have some traveling and some events Friday starting around 1 o'clock, I think. So we'll try
Get
to
the admin back for
we'll try to honor that as best we can.
Okay. Right, but we're so fun. No, I'm just All right, and Michael, you have a senior this year, right, for homecoming? Addie, is she a senior? No. Addie's a senior. Okay, so are you gonna be okay, homecoming events?
Oh, you bet.
Okay, because you were the one we were talking about that.
Oh, I think
Senior,
I'm
but
good.
then you have the juniors?
Seniors.
Oh, you have a senior too. Wow, back to back.
Yep, get them out.
And Matt, yours is a junior? A freshman, okay. So we'll try to work with your homecoming schedules there. So anything else for the board retreat? All right, let's go to policy review. Come on. It's not popping up for me. There we go, okay. So we have the administering medicine to students and our firearms one for discussion tonight. Is there anybody that, either one of those, or Justin, do you want to start us off?
I would I would recommend you pay attention to the red line for JLCD, just to see where all those changes came from. And that's a conglomeration of changes from our two nurses as they worked through that policy for the last 1 1 to 2 years, so just some recommendations. And we've had some things pop up that we need to clean up a little bit, so they'll be here on Monday if you have questions for them as well.
Okay.
Then, so if you guys have any questions tonight on that, I'm happy to try to have that answer them or have answers prepared for you by Monday.
Okay.
Is this second reading?
Be first reading.
Be first reading, yeah. On both of these.
First reading.
Yeah. No, it's probably a timely policy to have in place, to put in place. Have you had much feedback with CKA?
We've had 3 comments, 2 written and 1 submitted online, so
Okay.
I thought we'd give it till next week before we compile those and do that.
Sounds good.
My recommendation to the board is to come Monday night prepared to decide whether you want the word imminent or immediate in
Okay.
that 4th paragraph.
Okay. And you've given us the little guidelines of what imminent versus immediate.
Yeah, I think if any of our police officers are here tonight, they would tell you that any threat is imminent, and it changes between imminent and immediate depending on the actions of and the surroundings. So we originally had imminent, and they recommended immediate. But since we started with imminent as the original draft, it's just a red line in there if you want to go one direction or the other.
So law enforcement recommends.
And that would be the wording. I mean, that wording, according to our police officers, is pretty in line with their wording. So.
Okay. Okay.
Sure.
Mike?
Mr. Parentoni, can you tell us what would be the difference in the paths for that policy where we would follow a 40-day rule-making process
Oh, yeah.
rather than the 2 reading or 3 reading that we normally do for a policy?
Absolutely. So, Mr. Olson, Madam Chair, if we were, the way that this particular statute was written, it says rules, policies, or procedures, and anytime they use those 3 words, we have to have our ears perked up a little bit just to make sure that we are, if we're doing any procedures, which is to say that if we were to be making that very narrow set of rules that we could make about what we expect volunteers and or staff to do in addition to the law, that would be a rule, and we would have to go through a 45-day process for public comment and then go through our readings. This was very similar to what we did when we did the policy KB, parental rights or parental notification a year ago. This is not, we're not adding policy or not adding procedures or rules. We are just basically stating policy.
Correct.
And so because of that, we can go through a basic our regular path of just the two readings. If there's, I think our belief is that if there's no change between first and second reading would be final.
Correct.
If there is change between first and second, we would consider whether or not it's a final or go to a third.
Personally, I would recommend that pathway rather than the 45-day rule process, just for the fact that when we went through the rule process on KB, we had 0 comment. I think that when we have an opportunity to be broadcast on the OWL and people out in our community get an opportunity to see the board interact and have a discussion, they may have more of an inclination, and this is perception, of course, but there might be more of an inclination to make comment. And because it is such a pretty simple, straightforward policy, that's my opinion. I would rather see that, but.
And I think that's the path we're on right now.
Sure.
By the time you go to your first reading next week, it will have been 30 days since we published it, because we published it during the August. So, I mean, and most of you witnessed by attending town halls, the input that we got, so.
Right. Sure.
Right. Sounds good.
Thank you.
our two policies. Really, this is our time to chew them up if we want to. I don't really think these ones are, like you said, with the town halls, we put it out there, so it's been 30 days published, so.
Madam Chair, I was really impressed with the level of questions that we received at our town halls, and we had a lot of people engaging with people, so, I mean, it turned out to be very, very fruitful. I thought the conversations were rich, so you didn't have to attend every one of them to get every piece of it, but.
Very good. Well, again, I appreciate the effort that was put forth to put those town halls on, and for everybody that showed up. So. All right, let's move to 4.2, potential policy discussions. We have our graduation requirement one, and that one's still kind of probably a work in progress due to the state.
We're gonna pay attention to what the State Board of Education puts out for graduation requirements after right now it's still in the public comment period.
Okay.
So we'll be paying attention to that. We may very well, I think we had this conversation in the spring, but we may break this into two policies, a policy and a procedure, one that's kind of our overarching statement of what we believe for graduation, and then if we need to make procedural changes based off of requirements of that, to have that flexibility.
Okay, sounds very good. And that is one thing you did mention, I believe, last COW meeting too, is there is public comment on different things that the State Department of Education puts out, and if we pay attention to our newsletter from the Wyoming School Board Association, it gives us an opportunity, they'll give you windows of when you can weigh in and have public comment, and that's sent to all of us as board members, so if you feel so moved to make comment on those things, please do, especially in this case of graduation requirements. And then schooling admissions is one that has a potential.
Yeah, Madam Chair, we've had this on here for a while. We haven't talked about it a lot, but there's the definition of a non-resident student, and if the board wanted to go through an address verification process, Laramie 1 currently does that, and I didn't know if the board would ever consider that, but that's what it would look like if we were to go through that in a declining enrollment situation. I'm not sure. But it's just there in case we ever want to talk about
Want to entertain it with the red line. Okay. And your current policy. Is there any discussion, board? You guys are quiet tonight. It's been a long summer, a long hot day. All right.
Well, Madam Chair, I'd like to debate these policies, but it sounds to me like we're not in a place that we can debate them. That's disappointing.
To debate them.
Madam Chair, he really wants IKF. He really wants he's been pushing for the graduation policy for over a year now.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I came in here with balloons for everybody. And nobody will pop.
Not yet.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Section 5, agenda items for upcoming COW board meetings. Does anybody have anything on your agendas that you want to discuss or learn about? Okay, well, I've got some. I would kind of like to have a 30,000-foot view of what your professional development is going on in this district. And kind of give us, the rest of the board, I've been going to some of them, but I think it would kind of be interesting for the rest of the board to kind of have that 30,000-foot. And that, the one was at TNTP, I think that I kind of got to sit in on, but I thought it would be kind of interesting. And then perhaps maybe like when our PLCs get to celebrate, kind of let us know what they're celebrating, what they've accomplished, so that we know that we can appreciate what they're doing. I guess would be some things that I'd add. And probably resolutions, if anybody wants to come up with resolutions for the School Board Association's November get-together shindig that we get together for legislature.
So prior to that, if the board has any kind of resolution that you would like to author, script, publish, and get some kind of a sponsorship from it's not necessary, but, cause they don't determine its worthiness based upon whether it has a sponsorship from one of the legislators. But, if we can have that prior to the next WSBA regional meeting, which is prior to the November,
You said
because that's where we will discuss that and set those,
Okay.
and then they will be published for all the boards across the state to have a chance to review those resolutions. And they are asking for those now.
Yep.
If this board has a resolution, or you know somebody that wants a resolution that for consideration through WSBA,
Yeah.
we get moving on that.
I just saw that in the newsletter, that was resolutions and then presenters. If you guys have ideas for presenters, to have those ideas. So board, is there anything else? Tickles anybody's fancy tonight? Michael?
I have a comment just on, off the wall, just a little FYI, something that's floating out there and it has nothing, just for your information. This came around, Mr. Parentino, you know, I really appreciate your classification one-liner for us to clear it up as a board. Those numbers are very interesting in the state. So I don't know who all's seen those numbers. It's very fascinating. There is 11 teams in the 2A class. Under the reclassification, the WHSAA board, which Will Gray sits on for our corner, is meeting because the cut lines instead of the traditional, you know, it used to be way back when a 12, 16, 16 in the field. Well, that now is 4A with the cut lines, with the multiplier being 2.84 times. So the smallest school to biggest school, 4A is 14 schools with a 2.84 multiplier. Burns is in a 3A class with 16 with a 3.3 multiplier from bottom of the class to the top. 2A, because of where the cut lines are, is a 1.9 multiplier, so the smallest school, the biggest school isn't even twice as big, and there is 11 schools. And 1A is now 29 schools with like a 4-point-some multiplier. I've talked to Will, some others at WHSA. It's just really, the cut lines really, we're ending our first 2-year cycle, and it was basically a flawed experiment because we dropped 4 schools from 2A to 1A, and so that's just a FYI. I don't know how many people had even seen those numbers. They're just fresh. They have regional meetings coming September 10th. They needed proposals in from either through your school, your representative on the WHSAA board, of ways to switch it. There will be 100 different proposals, and there will be many measuring contests to say we support this or we don't. And it may look like that, but Pine Bluffs, just with the way the lines are, our nearest 2A competitor will get closer. It won't be Wright. Wright drops to 1A and Glen Rock comes back to 2A. But I hope there's a little more common sense maybe that comes back into classification lineups. It's not that we haven't tried, it's just they put cut lines that the way they work now messed up the classification. So I had a conversation with Julianne on that on the phone and thought it may be interesting to those that haven't seen them.
Thanks, Michael. Anything else? Anybody else want to add? All right. Now we have public comment. No papers, but any public comment? No public comment. Okay, thank you. Thanks for being here. All right, then we'll move into executive session.
Madam Chair,
Michael?
I move to go into executive session for personnel, legal, and safety.
Moved by Michael,
Second.
seconded by, I'll give Jared a second.